It's hard for me to get deep into science and not be even more in awe of who God is.
Mhm.
I'm never frightened by science.
I think that we should take comfort in the fact that we really don't have to be afraid. I think the basis for almost all of our conflict and all of our combating ideas within ourselves, within our faith, between our faith and the secular world, or even, very broadly between this problem that we have seemed to decide. Well, we have scientists versus believers. We have, we have the intellectuals versus the faithful. I think all of that hinges on fear. Whenever we start learning things that broach an arena that might make us have bigger questions than we have answers, I think there's a fear of having our belief, whatever the belief is, undone in some way. But God is not afraid of our questions.
It's funny how the last, I guess you could say the last 150, 200 years, belief has become, there's a culture war where belief has become ignorance. And in science and faith, it seems like you have to choose between one or the other. I think of Nacho Libre, the movie.
I love that movie.
And and Nacho's friend, he's had to make the decision between faith or science. He goes, I believe in science. And of course, Nacho's trying to get him baptized. But unfortunately, he believes in science, so he's had to make his decision. It's amazing how culture has shifted to where back in the day, the people of greatest learning also honored theology. Theology was considered the queen of the sciences. And in about an 8-year period, there were two major publications that rocked the planet. 1848 was Marx's Communist Manifesto, and 1856 was Darwin's Origin of Species. And it's just interesting to me that right in that time frame, these two things that have very much shaped Western culture to dehumanize people and to really embrace worldviews that whether people think they are or not, they're sort of faith worldviews. And I especially think of the carnage that these philosophies have produced, particularly in the 20th century, where the idea of natural selection and survival of the fittest was a philosophical basis for the destruction of millions of lives. Dialectic materialism is a communist theory that's almost like a religion, saying that the progression of humanity through higher and better social structures validates the annihilation of certain types of people, whether it's Hitler and the Jews or whether it's communists, complete obliteration of the upper classes, of the higher classes. And it's funny how these systems, which seem so much smarter than this ancient thing called faith in a triune God, have dehumanized people and have led to the slaughter, way more than the religious wars ever did, the slaughter of huge swaths of humanity. And so we're in a postmodern area where we're not so sure about ourselves anymore. But people of faith are still looked at as ignorant. And to me, it's just a weird deal. And we're getting into one of the front lines of this battle on, was the world created by a God, and is the account in Genesis to be taken seriously or not? And is it, if I'm honest, sometimes I read Genesis and I think this is a kid's story. And then there's other times that I read it and think, oh, there is some depth behind this. And it's perhaps the most beautiful thing I've ever read.
So you asked us when we were reviewing chapters 1 and 2 of Genesis, kind of speak to what struck us the most or what verse grabbed us or what. So what is that for you, Alex?
I have to give myself permission to enjoy this story, this account as from God, and I have to put my brain to rest, that I don't have to discount it or throw it aside. And for the most part, I'm able to do that. People like Grudem help me do that. And he's done a beautiful job of like he talks about the crisis of the evolutionist theory, and that most scientists, there's never, even though we've had a lot of time to find the links between species or to try to create life in a controlled environment, that still hasn't happened. And so most people are modifying their view to where suddenly species appeared out of nowhere, and then people are saying, well, if that's the evolutionary process, it just like seems to have leapt forward, or maybe aliens came and dropped these things on the planet. Easier to believe in aliens than to believe in than the God of Scripture. But for me, as I calm my brain, and I don't know how it is for you guys, but I have to make a faith decision that this is not unreasonable. And then when I read it, then I'm just like, there's just this incredible joy and freedom. And so to answer your question, the part I like the most is when he creates the birds and the fish. And I'm just going to read it. It's verses 20 through 23 of the first chapter of Genesis. God said, let the water teem with living creatures and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. And so God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems, that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, the fifth day. I love that. And even Melissa, when you were referencing your time on the patio, spring and summer and fall are incredible, because the birds, even in the wintertime, the birds are out there chirping. I wonder, how do they stay alive? I can't be outside without a coat for more than a half an hour, or I feel like I'm going to die.